They'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little off the front lines.
This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Let me go ahead and show you some rather interesting evidence that indicates to me Prince Harry is watching this channel, and more importantly, reading what I'm saying in the comments. You see, yesterday, I put out this video exposing the origins of the so-called online harm, mis- and disinformation causes, the same narrative conveniently used to justify censorship right before the 2020 election. I broke down President Trump's Davos speech and very intentionally called out the election in 2020 being rigged. Now, there was a reason for why Trump decided to break the news that people were going to be prosecuted in Davos.
It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections.
I don't think this was an accident that he did this in front of our NATO allies, meaning the EU and UK. If you haven't watched that video yet, you should. I walk through the beginning of where this mess had actually started, who was involved, and why globalist players like Mark Benioff at Salesforce keep showing up in the background. I also made a point of addressing NATO and the uncomfortable question no one in polite company wants to ask anymore. Can America actually rely on them at all? And this was a point that Donald Trump had made at Davos.
But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us if we...
I was in agreement with what Donald Trump was saying about could we really count on our NATO ally friends to be there for us? And this was really the only place that I saw anyone mention and letting me know that NATO responded to the United States after 9/11. And this was the United States activating NATO's Article 5, first time ever in history. Well, I didn't know that, and I just made the comment, why don't we talk about this more? That is important. Now, I could be wrong. I don't have eyes everywhere. But I didn't see anybody talking about this online or made a big deal about it these past 2 days since Donald Trump gave this speech on Wednesday. So it's very peculiar to me that Harry had his propagandist, Stephanie Petite, at People magazine, push this article out. Do I think it's a coincidence? No, because this is not the first time this has happened. It's just the first time I'm going to publicly call it out and highlight how ignorant it is of him to challenge the president's position like this. Let's get into this propaganda, because I want everybody to understand exactly what's going on here, including Harry, because I know he has his people listening. Every time he feels entitled to wade into America's affairs, just know he's digging himself into even a deeper hole. And frankly, it's getting harder for him to pretend he doesn't know what he's doing. I honestly think this guy is really trying to get himself deported. Let's go through this quick article and set the record straight, because if Harry thinks that he is asserting his dominance here, he's sadly mistaken. People magazine headline, Prince Harry issues strong statement after Trump questions NATO allies' role after 9/11. I lost friends. Prince Harry is reacting to President Donald Trump's comments that NATO allies stayed a little back from the front lines during the war in Afghanistan. In an interview with Fox News on January 22nd, Trump questioned whether NATO allies would be there if the United States ever needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. They'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that, and they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines, he said. The Duke of Sussex, who served in the British Army for a decade, including 2 tours of Afghanistan, issued a strong statement via his spokesperson on January 23rd in response to the claim. In 2001, NATO invoked Article 5 for the first and only time in history. Harry said, referencing the alliance's mutual defense clause following the September 11th attacks. It meant that every allied nation was obliged to stand with the United States in Afghanistan in pursuit of our shared security. Allies answered that call. I served there, I made lifelong friends there, and I lost friends there, he continues. The United Kingdom alone had 457 service personnel killed. Harry went on to underscore the lasting impact of the war. Thousands of lives were changed forever. Mothers and fathers buried sons and daughters. Children were left without a parent. Families are left carrying the cost, he said. Those sacrifices deserve to be spoken about truthfully and with respect, as we all remain united and loyal to the defense of diplomacy and peace. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer also reacted to Trump's claim, calling it insulting and frankly appalling.
Let me start by paying tribute to the 457 of our armed services who lost their lives in Afghanistan. I will never forget their courage, their bravery, and the sacrifice that they made for their country. There are many also who were injured, some with life-changing injuries. And so I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling. And I'm not surprised they've caused such hurt to the loved ones of those who were killed or injured, and in fact, across the country.
Prince Harry, 41, relocated to the United States after stepping back from his working role within the royal family in 2020. Yeah, I think we know that by now. He and Meghan Markle settled in her home state of California, where they are raising their 2 children. While members of the royal family traditionally avoid public comment on political issues, Harry has continued to speak publicly about military service and veterans' welfare since stepping back from royal life. King Charles and other members of the royal family hosted Trump, alongside First Lady Melania Trump, during a state visit to Windsor Castle in September. More recently, they had been reporting that the monarch could travel to the United States in the coming months as the country approaches its 250th anniversary of independence. The Telegraph reported earlier this month that King Charles was expected to pay a state visit to the United States in April, echoing a December 26 report from the Times that said advanced discussions were underway and that such a trip was considered highly likely. The brass neck of this asshole having the audacity to criticize President Donald Trump in matters that don't concern him. I don't care if he put on a uniform and pretended to be a soldier. We all know that there were people watching and protecting over him while he sat in a bunker playing video games. And by the way, Harry, it was America that triggered Article 5 for the first time ever in NATO history, because we thought we needed help from Europe. But when we look at the help that was given over the course of 20 years, the numbers don't lie. Don't act like Europe came in and saved the day for the United States, because you really didn't. And I'm not trying to take away to the lives that were lost in the Afghanistan war, but compare that to the amount of people that the United States had lost, and compare that to the amount of soldiers that we had sent over compared to the rest of our allies and contributions. So, Harry, I think you need to sit down on this one, because when you look at these numbers closer, you realize how stupid you look right now, and proving Donald Trump correct. Because comparing the United States contribution to over $2 trillion over the course of 20 years, plus over 100,000 troops, in addition to over 2,500 who died serving this country compared to your numbers, you really have no weight. You know, when you look at 28.2 billion compared to 2 trillion, it really is a drop in the bucket. We've learned from Ukraine and what that whole operation is. I mean, how convenient that Biden royally messed up the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which I think was intentional to trigger emergency funding, which led to reckless spending that went without any kind of oversight or auditing. You know, it makes total sense as to why Harry and Meghan lined up so quickly to help resettle these unvetted Afghans. I wonder how much money they were able to siphon from that program, because it was billions that was thrown at recklessly. Yeah, we absolutely should be pissed off about this. Yeah, the hypocrisy is off the charts here in this article, talking about the lives and all those families that had been affected by this war. A war that was continued for no reason, all to launder money, just like what we're seeing with Ukraine, continuing and wanting to keep this war going in order to line their pockets. That's the most disgusting thing about all of this. So how dare you go and talk about all those lives affected forever when you're the one who is profiting from it? Whether it be taking advantage of the suffering and the disabilities with Invictus, as well as taking advantage of those poor refugees that were brought over here who want to kill us. No, Harry, you lose this argument. I don't care what you say, you just make a better argument for us to leave NATO because it's not worth it, because all you guys are doing are grifting off the backs of the American people with these unnecessary forever wars to keep NATO relevant. We need to get out of there quick, and get back to working on ourselves to fix the damage that these very same allies had caused.
Instead of raising taxes on domestic producers, we're lowering them and raising tariffs on foreign nations to pay for the damage that they've caused.
Harry and Meghan are the poster children for everything that went wrong with the left. And we have to blame the royal family for this because ultimately they had the power to knock these two down, but they didn't. As much as many people still like to keep their head in the sand, there's absolutely no way that the royal family, especially King Charles, didn't know about what his son and his bitch wife were up to here in the United States. They are over here with the blessing of the crown. Make no mistake about it. We've got the most powerful family in the world who has access to all kinds of intelligence. There is no way they didn't know what Markle and Harry and the whole cast of characters were doing. There's no way. Now, allow me to go off on just a small little mini rant. One of the things that I found always baffling was the public's ability to throw common sense out the window and critical thinking when it came to this couple. And I'm talking about believing everything that the media is churning out. Yeah, I'm not talking about my viewers because I think many of you see past the bullshit and are able to understand and put two and two together and come to your own conclusion. But, there's so many people out there that literally believe everything the mainstream media says. And if, it's not said by them, then it can't be true. In this situation, what I could never understand is that how is it that people didn't really connect the dots, even from the simplest things, such as like Harry and Meghan escaping the palace and fleeing to the United States in the middle of the night because they were discovered. Like, how would that even be possible, especially since they are connected to this big organization? Like, the security alone and the coordination with that had to have some kind of thought, especially around how they were going to make it over, without being seen. There's a lot of preparation that goes into having the royals move around. It's not like Harry and Meghan could just get in their cars and drive off and go wherever they want. And I could never understand why everybody believed the story of Harry and Meghan just jetting away without recognizing that the palace had to know. They had to know their movements. They had to know where they were going and what they were intending on doing. It's ludicrous that people think and believe still the story that we were fed because everything else has been a lie. Why wouldn't Megxit also be a lie? There was more than enough evidence showing that Megxit was a lie. But we're still going down the path that Meghan had to get away because of the racist British media. But I digress. Getting back to this. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate now that anytime I see Harry and Meghan or subsequently the royal family, I can't help but feel a little bit annoyed and angry at how this all unfolded, and knowing that the royal family is very much aligned with this agenda that is destroying the West. And I think that's the saddest part about all of this, is just knowing that they're allowing Britain to collapse in real time, all because they're following this stupid agenda that has been disastrous. When we look at Harry and Meghan, everything that they represent, their brand is the failure of the West. It truly is. If we had to summarize all of this up and this saga, they are the poster children for the failure that we're seeing across the West. Like, the foundation of the left is nothing but lies. Harry and Meghan are a lie. The royal family lied. The Democrats lie. That's not the place that America wants to be at right now, because those lies contributed to a lot of harm that we see going on right now. And rightfully so, America wants strong people, good people, people that we can trust. You know, the West right now is literally going off into a direction that is godless, that really doesn't have any type of respect for life, especially children. We're looking at the UK and these grooming gangs that are pervasive and nothing's being done about it. Yeah, if Charles can bring awareness for cancer, why can't he bring awareness to this problem that's going on to protect the future? Looking the other way and pretending that it just simply doesn't exist because you don't want to be uncomfortable or ruffle any feathers with various members in the Labor Party or with the Muslim community. Yeah, I think it's pretty weak. I'm sorry, but that does not align with what America represents, and we're not going to stand by it or support it. And Donald Trump is right. We don't want this culture that is consuming everywhere in the West and destroying what makes the West great. He's right.
See a strong and united West, because Europe and those countries have to do their thing. They have to get out of the culture that they've created over the last 10 years. It's horrible what they're doing to themselves. They're destroying themselves. It's beautiful, beautiful places. We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. We want Europe to be strong.
25 years ago was a different time and era. Can we say that our allies will be there for us now? Absolutely not. Considering we had a prince from the UK on US soil who had interfered with our 2020 election. The involvement and role that this guy had here in censoring Americans and the people that he had been working with and was surrounded by who were involved or had an idea about January 6th cannot be denied. And Trump knows. Trump knows all of that.
It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections.
The United States can no longer trust the EU or the UK. And I'm not talking about the regular citizens. I'm talking about the politicians and leaders who are in power that have been laundering and siphoning America's wealth. It's bureaucrats like Harry's friend Tobias Ellwood that we can't trust. They're the ones who are pushing for more war and getting America to fund it.
Well, this is the Warsaw Security Forum, the huge annual gathering of leaders from across the NATO alliance, here to discuss the growing challenges facing Europe's security that now goes well beyond Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And following President Trump's late recognition that Putin cannot be trusted and Ukraine should push Russian troops back across its border, there's a cautious optimism here that this war can be won. But Russia has moved to a war footing and is increasingly more assertive as recent violations by its drone and fast jets into NATO airspace have demonstrated. Well, NATO's defense posture is now looking dated. We've not kept pace with technology that is changing the conduct of war. Its air defenses, including in Britain, are looking out of date. But more urgently, if we are to seek to check Russia's aggression, it begins by ensuring that Putin fails in Ukraine. That means being less risk-averse with our support, providing Ukraine with those long-range missiles, even participating in defending Ukrainian airspace with a no-fly zone. Shaping this war, winning this war, not just reacting to it. The question for NATO, for Europe, and indeed America, that now seems to be on the same page is, do we have the confidence to secure victory in Ukraine and push Russia out? Because if we don't, Russian aggression, military and economic, that's increasingly supported by China, will only grow, leading to a much larger conflict further down the line.
This should be really alarming for Americans to hear, because why is the technology and defenses outdated? Considering the amount of money that we give to NATO on an annual basis, there is no reason for technology and defenses to be outdated. So where is the money, Tobias? There is no excuse for technology and defenses to be outdated, especially when the United States is giving NATO, this entity, almost $1 trillion on an annual basis. So I don't want to hear that technology is outdated and we have to give more. So now bringing the story full circle, the fact that this ginger asshole has got the nerve to disrespect not only our president, but this country itself, gives us even more reason to leave NATO. Because if we have a prince from the UK who is technically representing the crown, even though, you've got the palace saying that, oh yeah, they stepped down from royal duties. We know that's bullshit. We know that Harry's still a part of this family, regardless if they want to accept him or not. He's still a part of it, part of the crown. We have a foreign prince on U.S. soil who has not only committed acts of war by interfering and participating in undermining our democracy, but also now openly criticizing and disrespecting our leader. He can go fuck himself. And so can NATO. Because here we have almost $1 trillion going into this organization on an annual basis. And over the last 25 years, America has given almost $15 trillion. Where is it going? And then on top of it, gave another $350 billion to our allies to launder, to support a war for a country that's not even a part of NATO? Help me make that make sense. Don't be mad that America finally has the balls to stand up and say, we're not suckers anymore. Go siphon money elsewhere, or put your hand in your pocket and pay for it. There's no benefit here to us. So I don't really care if, Harry, you lost friends and you fought in the war. Harry, you didn't sacrifice shit for anybody in that bunker playing video games. So don't get it twisted. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. I'm glad to know that Harry is watching. So, hi, Harry. Anyway, definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
That's really the ultimate test, and I'm not sure of that. I know that we would have been there, or we would be there. But will they be there? And let's hope that that never happens. We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. They'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little off the front lines. But we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries. It has to be a two-way street. And it's been a two-way street, much more so. And now it's really been a two-way street.
Such a fraud.